everybody. Let's make a story.
It's time for Comics Kids.
Hey Comics Kids, welcome back. It's Mr. Craig here. We're going to be making our comic books and going a little bit further in that process today. Today we're going to be learning about penciling. And we started out by creating a character, and that character could be done with basic and simple shapes. That way when you're drawing it and redrawing it, it's a lot easier when it's simple shapes because then you can just kind of work with them shapes. So keep that in mind. If your character is super complicated, it's going to take you a long time to draw that. That's okay. Just be prepared for that. We also then wrote our story and made a sloppy copy. Here's the sloppy copy from before. And I'm going to use this now as my blueprint. And let's see here. Today we're going to be penciling our comic pages. And as you can see, I've got quite a few of the lines already done. And we'll look from above. But here we see how this is going to match. And I didn't make my pencils very dark. I don't like to do that. I like to really keep them clean so that when I'm actually inking, it's going to make a huge difference. But as I was doing that, I found some fun little things that could happen. Like here, Tommy Smoking Brains, kind of his cloud of smoke kind of comes up over that, and we can kind of see how that's going. And right now I'm just kind of trying to draw in really dark with a pencil so that but I'm not making it super dark. I'm not making it super heavy because I know that I'm going to need to erase these sometime soon. This is where my word bubble is, and I don't know what he's going to say here yet. Probably this is what I was thinking, and I did edit my story since I wrote it. And you can do that because you know who's the boss of your story? You are. You guys are the bosses of your own stories, so you guys can make up and change things as you will because no one's going to yell at you and go, hey, I thought I told you to draw that guy like that. No. You make it the way that you want because you are the creator. That's pretty darn cool. But now I've got my layout here, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the panels kind of laid out, and my story was where he was fishing. But I thought it would be even funnier if he wanted to be having some alone time at the fishing pond. So Baghead's coming up to the fishing pond, and he'll probably say something like, I'm so happy to have the afternoon by myself. And all of a sudden, here's Tommy, and what we're going to do is I'm going to have Tommy say something like, have no fear, Tommy's here. Got any food? So he's already interrupting Baghead in his peaceful day. And then here Baghead says, have yourself a sandwich. And I can spell that however I want because cartoonists from the past have given us the opportunity to make up the language as we see fit, and we can write it phonetically. So if I want Baghead to say sandwich, I can put down the word sandwich. But now when Tommy Smoking Brains here is chowing down on the sandwich, now Baghead doesn't have one. So now he's just thinking, and there's a thought bubble up here, hungry. And now I have to figure out where I want this next panel to go and how I want to lay that out. It's kind of a side shot, but now when I look at these two panels, they're going to be pretty similar because Baghead is getting the ice cream from Tommy and he's on both sides. So I might want to shift. Right now we're looking at Tommy in the foreground, Baghead slightly in the background. So there's a little bit of a different change. Maybe I should shift that around so now Tommy is in the background a little bit. And I think let's take a look at the other ones. And it's kind of going to match this a little bit, I guess. And again, I'm drawing super lightly and very loosely. So yeah, I'm going to actually make it pretty much the same panel size there. But then when I get to the other side of Baghead, I'm going to change it quite a bit. Like we said, we want to be able to change our character to fit our needs as we're going, and change not just the character, but change the story the way that you want it to fit. I was working with some kids yesterday, actually, and one of the kids started a story where every day Baghead would read his favorite book. So that was kind of what her story started out as, until one day his favorite book was stolen. And because of that, he had to go and read something else. And because of that, he had to go and read something else. And then because of that, he found his new favorite book. And ultimately, what we did with the story is it seemed like Baghead was learning that a favorite book is great, but you can read a whole bunch of different things to make your story interesting. And that was kind of the moral of her story, is that have more than just one fun thing. You can share a lot of different things. You know what I can do here, though, is I can kind of put a little bit different perspective on Smokin' Tommy's brain here, or Smokin' Tommy's face. He's looking at us a little bit more rather than at the side like this. He's looking at us a little bit more. So, and he's going to have an ice cream cone for himself and for Baghead. So let's figure out how we can show that in here as well. And again, I'm drawing very loosely, and there's his hand. His hand has got to come in here. He's holding it. Let's have his pinky out. I always have my pinky out when I'm holding delicate things. And the fun thing about Tommy is that he's wearing these overalls. And overalls can be fun to draw. They're so different. And we should probably have him talking, so his mouth is going to be open, but maybe not quite that much. Now, when we are working, we want to have a decent eraser that we can use, but we don't want to have to depend on it too much, because if I'm erasing all the time, my page is just going to get really messy. And if you notice, I'm working from one corner to the other side kind of on purpose, because it's just a natural thing that I did. But I can also think about how I would lay this out, because now I want to have Baghead kind of in the foreground here. So let's kind of make his head quite a bit bigger. And he's going to actually come off the panel a little bit. And if you look at the side of this comic page that I'm using, and you can use a normal sheet of paper. Heck, you can even draw, when I'm working with my kids, I have them draw their panels on just big squares on a normal sheet of paper. And then we can kind of paste it together in the computer. That's a really good option if you have limited size paper. But I wanted to kind of do this the way that artists would traditionally have done comic book work before. So what I'm doing is I'm doing it particularly on this comic book size page, and it's big. It's pretty big. And it also has marks and guidelines on here that show me where the printer will cut things off. So that means that anything that I'm drawing that's past that line is a waste of my time, but it can, because it's not going to be seen by anybody other than people that maybe want to see the original page work. But we also have a line that's inside there where it's going to be close, but you don't want people to have to read up to that line. So it's your text safe lines. So you want to try to keep those in a safe area. And it's similar to editing video in a weird way. So let's see here. Now I'm going to get Baghead's eyes, and he's looking kind of back behind himself because he sees Tommy back there. And I'm going to put some eyebrows up. And let's see. I like to use hands a lot because hands can be really expressive. And in here, he's just got his hands up as Tommy's handed him an ice cream cone. Let's see if I bring an ice cream cone in here like this. I just noticed that my mouth is hanging open when I'm drawing. Doesn't usually do that. But sometimes when you're concentrating, your tongue might stick out. People have their tongue stick out, or sometimes people will have. They're gonna have his little pinky sticking out there too. And again, this isn't quite super neat yet because I'm just doing some layouts of what I want it to be. And let's see here. Tommy's body will come in like this. Body in there. And I don't want the seam of his pants to match up with the corner of the ice cream cone. That would just be too much of a coincidence. So I'm going to kind of bring that out a little bit. And then overalls have a big bucket on top. And just barely see his feet coming in. Now you also run into some interesting situations where it's like, okay, here is a little bit of his foot sticking out of the panel. Here's a bit of his feet sticking out of the panel, or a little bit of his head coming out of the panel, or his hat. These are options that you can do, but try to limit them. I mean, sometimes it's like the action is so fierce that it's happening and coming out of the panels, and you can kind of do that. But also, sometimes it's just a matter of you're running out of space. Is that what you're doing, or are you making an artistic choice for the betterment of your page? Now, the cool thing I've got going on with my page here is that I decided to go with a big, giant picture on the outside that's going to extend inside of these panels. So behind these panels, we're going to see some of the cattails from the pond. We're going to see some ripples maybe in the water, and that's all going to be part of what's happening in the background. Right here, I've got a lot of room, and what I could do is potentially put a title in here, A Nice Day Away, or something like that, and I'll figure that out as I'm going. But again, now I'm working on laying out my page, and the weird thing is that this is not the way that I typically like to work. I like to kind of have an idea of where I'm going. You always want to have an idea of where you're going, but then I also like to I like to ink it as I'm going, because the inking is so much cleaner and it gives you such a much more solid feel for what this is going to look like when you're done. That's an option that you have as well. Now, I said that I wanted to kind of have a hand coming up with Baghead. So his body's turned, his body is kind of turned toward the camera a little bit like that, and then he's got a hand that's coming up like this. And the cool thing is right now I can look at my monitor and I can see that my hand kind of looks like this. So I've got a finger up and I've got a thumb out. So right here is kind of a real quick version of what Baghead's hand could look like as he's sitting there thinking about what's about to happen. So here is Baghead, and I like to give him a little bit of a V-collar on his hoodie just to kind of make it stand out. But now if I erase some of the parts that I don't want to have there, it is really nice. Now the cool thing is too is that not only are you the penciler, you are also the inker. And as you're creating, you will be able to go and fix things as you're drawing them with the ink on the page. That is something that you will be able to do without upsetting the artist whatsoever, because you are the artist. And I met a guy this weekend who is a comic artist out of Michigan, and it's pretty cool because we chatted quite a bit about how he was developing. He was like 14, 15 years old when he met some of his first comic artists, and they really helped him to figure out the size of things and how to make their different panels. And that's really cool. If you have that certain person that can help you lay things out, boom, that will help you a ton. But there are now a lot more books out there than there were when I was a kid. So you guys have a much better chance at learning it through a book or on podcasts. There's a ton of podcasts, including Mr. Craig here, that you guys can follow and make some really cool choices for. I also love this fact that Tommy Smokin' Brains has got a smokestack on his head, because now I can kind of have that smoke kind of coming in and filling up the panel in an interesting way as we're going there. I'm at the point here where Baghead and Tommy sitting on the dock eating their ice cream, and it's going to be from a slightly different angle than that. Once I've got it laid out, I can go in here and fix it up a little bit, make it better, and then kind of go from there with some of my imagination and changing it the way that I want to. Following my plan here, the dock is going to be right about there, and I want to put my poles in the water, or the posts, to kind of hold the dock up. Now this doesn't even have our characters in it, so I don't want to get too much detail because I got a feeling that they're going to hide this. I want to figure out a way to make a fish there. One of the things I'm going to want to probably do is find some resource images of what that fish should look like so that I could kind of have some ideas of what a real fish might look like sticking out of the water. Also, if you're not sure how these figures should be laid out or how the bodies bend, have a friend of yours stand there and pose in the particular spot that you'd like them to be in. I'm going to continue penciling this so that next time the whole page will be ready and we can start doing some inking. I'll probably even have some of the inking done. Before you guys go, I want to share with you guys an artist. If you've noticed my comic book shirt here today, it's one of those old monster comics that Mr. Craig loves so much. And it was created by a guy named Jacob Kurtzberg. Jack Kirby is a hip-hop name for Jacob Kurtzberg. And he had a ton of other names that he kind of went with until he found that one. When he did his early work, he was called Jack Curtis or Kurt Davis. And as a creator, he could create in a whole bunch of different places and under different pseudonyms, under different names. He got a chance to really experiment with what he wanted to do in that regard. Jack Kirby. And that name should be important to you because Jack Kirby is really one of the key creators. Him and Stan Lee created characters like the Fantastic Four, Thor, Ant-Man, Iron Man, the X-Men, the Silver Surfer, and heck, even the Black Panther. So these are characters that you are very familiar with unless you've been living under a rock. And a lot of the movies that are coming out right now are based on those characters. Some artists can make one page a day. That's pretty good. Jack Kirby could make probably 5 in a day, and that is just him being an absolute machine and going. And they called him the King. Jack Kirby and his creative partner created a character by the name of Captain America. He did that in 1941. And shortly after that, he was drafted into the army. One of the weird things is when his lieutenant found out that he was an artist, he's like, oh my gosh, this is the guy that I can get out to send out into the most dangerous places so he could draw maps for us. Jack Kirby was born in New York in 1917, and he died in 1994. The name? Jack Kirby. Remember that. All right, well, I hope you guys had fun. I really enjoy working on comics and making some cool stuff. My name is Mr. Craig. I'm with the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Green Bay. I'm also with the Boys and Girls Club Creates, as well as the Virtual Boys and Girls Club. And I hope that you've been learning and continuing your work. And by cracky, if you get something made with Baghead in it, send it my way because I'd love to include you in our next comic. Oh, that would be awesome. Have a great night, you guys. All right, how can I make this better?